Democrats must recognize that Zoran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Get it? But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies?
Bill Maher is once again criticizing his own party, and this time he's taking aim at New York's new mayor, Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani is being celebrated by the DNC and praised by many liberals, but Maher isn't buying into the excitement. He openly questions Mamdani's appeal and is blunt about whether he has what it takes to become a serious leader for the party. Maher's take is sharp, direct, and hard to ignore. So make sure you're subscribed, and let's break it all down right now.
At least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won. In districts, Trump also won. All moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong, moving to the center.
Maher says the Democratic Party is now deeply divided. One side is made up of members who openly support socialism and want the party to fully adopt that label. The other side wants nothing to do with the word at all, knowing it turns off regular voters outside activist and elite circles. Maher clearly places himself with this second group. He argues that socialism may sound appealing at rallies or on college campuses, but it quickly becomes a problem when it reaches working-class voters in competitive areas. Maher points to history, both in the US and in other countries, showing that socialist messaging pushes away moderates, independents, and even longtime Democrats who value stability and practical solutions. His warning is straightforward: if Democrats focus more on strict ideology than on winning elections, they risk narrowing their support and making it easier for Republicans to win.
Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system where there's strange hair on the soap. No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge. So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to. Thing is, socialism will, because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked, like Kevin Federline.
Maher explains that socialism keeps gaining supporters for a simple reason. Many of the people drawn to it feel stuck in life. They're often middle-aged, burned out, financially stressed, or disappointed with how things turned out. To them, socialism feels like a way out, a promise that something will finally fix what the system didn't. Maher doesn't dismiss that frustration. He understands it. But he says understanding pain doesn't mean buying into false hope. In his view, socialism offers emotional comfort, not real answers. It promises security while ignoring human behavior, motivation, and how power actually works. His warning is direct. Socialism has failed every time it's been tried, no matter the country or scale. Rebranding it with new slogans doesn't change the result. It only postpones the letdown.
I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century, a mess.
Maher says it's tempting to believe people in the past simply didn't know better. We like to think that with modern knowledge and better intentions, we can redo old ideas and finally make them work. Sometimes that's true, but often, history repeats itself when the core ideas stay the same. Maher argues socialism hasn't truly changed since it began. The language sounds nicer and the presentation looks cleaner, but the foundation remains unchanged. Central control, weakened incentives, and power concentrated at the top still lead to the same outcomes. And those outcomes usually end badly for governments that try it. Maher says believing this time is different isn't hope, it's denial. Ignoring decades of real examples doesn't erase the danger. It makes failure more likely. When history keeps sending warnings, pretending they don't apply is a serious risk.
It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
Maher predicts that if Mayor Mandani pushes New York towards socialism, the city could become another public example of a failed idea. He says the damage wouldn't happen overnight. It would unfold gradually, adhering to a well-established pattern. Businesses would slow down or leave, wages would stop growing, and job opportunities would dry up. Investment would disappear. Infrastructure that's already struggling would fall further behind, with unreliable power, decaying roads, and public services that cost more but deliver less. To cover the growing budget gaps, taxes would rise, squeezing middle-class families and small businesses even harder. Maher insists this isn't scare tactics. It's a pattern seen again and again where socialist policies are applied. New York is already expensive and vulnerable. Adding rigid ideology on top of existing problems could turn temporary issues into long-term decline. Once that slide begins, he warns, it's much harder to reverse than to prevent.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week. Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet.
Maher uses healthcare as a clear example of why socialism breaks down in practice. He points to Bernie Sanders' push for single-payer healthcare, which was sold as a way to reduce red tape and simplify the system. The idea sounded appealing: remove private insurers, centralize payments, and make care cheaper and faster. But Maher says the reality showed the opposite. Instead of less bureaucracy, single-payer systems often create one massive government structure that moves slowly and inefficiently. Costs didn't shrink, they grew. Wait times increased, choices became limited, and political decisions replaced practical ones. Maher says this isn't about ideology, it's about reality. Good intentions don't override economics or human behavior. When government controls all payments, rationing follows, innovation slows, and accountability fades. What was promoted as a clean solution became another warning sign of why socialism struggles when tested in real life.
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism, much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more.
Maher then takes on the role of teacher, speaking to those who believe socialism could save them personally or fix the country. He reminds viewers that the U.S. already includes some social programs. Social Security, Medicare, unemployment benefits, and public education all exist to soften capitalism's rough edges. These programs are safety nets, not replacements for the entire system. Maher says recognizing that fact doesn't mean supporting full socialism. There's a huge difference between regulating capitalism and throwing it out completely. Capitalism, while flawed, still drives growth, innovation, and opportunity. Socialism promises fairness but often delivers stagnation and control. Maher believes reform is necessary, but tearing everything down is reckless.
We're petrified of COVID, masking 2-year-olds who never would have died from it and keeping schools closed for far too long. They're definitely afraid of their kids, who from time immemorial have always come up with bad ideas. Their kids. Thinking up stupid shit is what they do. But parents used to tell them, that's ridiculous. The world doesn't work that way. Not today's parents. They say, you're right, honey. Gender is just a social construct. Please, sometimes your mother and I forget which one of us has.
Maher criticizes Democrats for what he sees as a growing culture of fear. He says many are scared to say the wrong thing, upset the wrong group, or call out bad behavior, even within their own ranks. This fear has grown so intense that they avoid correcting anyone at all. Instead of leading, they hesitate. According to Maher, this has pushed the party into constantly catering to a small but loud far-left group that demands strict conformity and instant outrage. While that happens, everyday voter concerns like safety, cost of living, and stability get ignored. Maher says real leadership requires courage, not applause online. If Democrats keep operating from fear, they won't just lose debates, they'll lose elections.
I mean, I don't know if we're still banning TikTok. That was before we changed the rule in America to Trump decides what's a law. But I know it wouldn't even be an issue if parents would sack up and tell their kids to get off the phone. Democrats are still afraid of the mean girls who police their far-out fringe. Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton had a perfect score on LGBTQ issues from the Human Rights Campaign. But when he said, I have 2 little girls, I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete, his own campaign manager quit.
Maher explains that this fear is also why many Democrats stay quiet about woke ideology. He says it's not because they truly agree with it, but because they're afraid of online backlash. One poorly worded sentence can trigger a swarm of criticism, accusations, and demands for apologies. The threat of being labeled or canceled has become a powerful weapon. So instead of speaking honestly, many choose silence. They repeat approved lines and hope they don't become the next target. Maher calls this cowardice disguised as unity. Going along with the crowd may feel safe, but when that crowd is heading the wrong way, staying quiet makes you part of the problem. Fear-based politics, he warns, doesn't move a country forward. It drives it toward collapse.
Imagine that, a congressman merely stands up for the liberal principle, the one we do still call Title IX, that women get an equal shot in sports, and now it gets you labeled a Nazi. The reason Gretchen Whitmer looked like a toddler playing peekaboo in the Oval Office is she's afraid of the Liz Bratts of the world and the 12 social justice warriors on the internet and what they might tweet to their 7 followers. Alyssa Slotkin calls her party weak and woke. She's right. People vote on instinct. They can smell fear a swing state away, and they'd rather have strong and wrong.
Maher's overall message is clear and unsparing. He sees a Democratic Party split between those drawn to socialism and those who understand its risks, between rigid ideology and practical leadership. He warns that socialism, despite its appeal to frustrated people, has never succeeded and never will. It promises fairness and relief, but history shows it leads to stagnation, control, and disappointment. Even America's existing social programs function within capitalism, not instead of it. Beyond policy, Maher condemns the party's culture of fear. Fear of social media, fear of backlash, and fear of standing up to their own side. By catering to a vocal fringe, Democrats risk losing touch with everyday voters. Following the crowd may feel comfortable, but it leads to irrelevance. Maher's warning is simple. Without courage, practicality, and respect for history, the party risks losing not just elections but also its sense of self. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching,